Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's talk about how to complete the square today. First, we're going to start things off by solving a perfect square trinomial equation. First and foremost, you want to factor the perfect square trinomial first. After doing so, then you want to take the square root on both sides, and then you're going to find the solutions for x. Remember, we call these solutions the zeros, the x-intercepts, the roots, or just the solutions. Alright, let's take a look at example 1 here on the left. X squared plus 10x plus 25. When we factor this perfect square trinomial here on the left, we get the factors x plus 5 times x plus 5 equals to 36. Remember that when you have the exact same binomial multiplied together, we can rewrite that as x plus 5 squared is equal to 36. Now we are going to take the square root on both sides of our equation here. We are going to find that x plus 5 is equal to the positive and negative root of the square root of 36. We know that the square root of 36 is positive and negative 6. Now we are going to isolate our variable x, and we are going to find that x equals negative 5 plus or minus 6. Once we split and we do, negative 5 plus 6, we get one root, which is 1, and then when we do negative 5 minus 6, we get the other root of negative 11. So in this case here, we are going to say that x equals negative 11 and 1. Please pause this video and give the example on the right a try. When factoring the perfect square trinomial here on the left, you will find that we get x minus 6 times x minus 6. We can rewrite that as x minus 6 squared, take the square root on both sides. Remember, the square root of 0 is always going to be 0. And then when solving for x, we get x equals 6. If one side of the quadratic function is not a perfect square trinomial, you can convert it into one by rewriting the constant term. We call this process, which is really finding the last term of the perfect square trinomial, is called completing the square. So, given the quadratic expression x squared plus bx plus question mark, to find that question mark value, we are going to use the equation b over 2 squared. That will give us the value c to complete this square. In this first example here on the left side in example 2, we know that b is the term negative 8. So to find the term that completes the square, we are going to do negative 8 over 2 squared. In this case, we know that negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Then we know that negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So that value 16 completes the square, and our perfect square trinomial in this case will be x squared minus 8x plus 16. Please pause this video and give that second example here on the right a try on your own. The example on the right here, b, is 7. We are going to find 7 over 2 squared. I would recommend, if you get an improper fraction that cannot be simplified, rather than converting to a decimal, I would keep it as a fraction. In order to square a fraction, you need to square the value in the numerator and square the value in the denominator. In this case, the missing value that completes the square would be 49 over 4. So the perfect square trinomial in this example would be x squared plus 7x plus 4, 49 over 4. Now let's talk about how to solve a quadratic function by completing the square. First, we want to rewrite the equation so that all terms containing variables are on one side of the equal sign, and then we move the constant to the other side. Next, we are going to find b over 2 squared, and then we're going to add that term to both sides of the equation. Next, you'll find that we have a perfect square trinomial, so we are going to factor the left-hand side of the equation. On the right side, we're going to combine any like terms. After factoring, we are going to take the square root of each side, and then we will solve for the variable. So let's do an example together. In example 3, we are going to solve x squared plus 6x minus 91 equals 0 by completing the square. So first and foremost, we are going to add 91 to both sides. So with me here, add 91 to both sides. In step 2, we are going to find what b over 2 squared is. In this case, b is the value 6. So let's find what 6 over 2 squared is. We should find that 6 over 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So we are going to then add 9 to both sides. After adding 9 to both sides, you'll see that we have a perfect square trinomial here. So let's factor our perfect square trinomial. And then after, I'd like you to put the factor here. Pause this video and factor x squared plus 6x plus 9. After factoring that perfect square trinomial, you should get x plus 3 times x plus 3. In this case, we want to use x plus 3 squared, and we're going to set that equal to 91 plus 9, which is 100. Step 4, we are going to take the square root on both sides. So you should notice that we are left with x plus 3 equals plus or minus 10. Now we are working on isolating x in this case. What I'd like you to do is to split and solve. So in this case, we are going to split. We're going to have x plus 3 equals to 10. So in this case, we will find that x equals to 7 when we solve the equation here on the left. Then when we solve the equation x plus 3 equals negative 10, we find that x equals negative 13. And like we've been doing, we are going to order our solutions from least to greatest. Now what I would like you to do is to take a look at example 4 and 5. Please work on completing the square on your own. Please pause this video and hit play once you've completed both of these examples. Now let's take a look at example 4 here on the left. First and foremost, you needed to subtract 73 on both sides of the equation. Then we needed to find the value that would complete our perfect square trinomial by using b over 2 squared. After doing that, we find that the value that will complete the square is 100. So you add 100 to both sides. From there, you need to factor the perfect square trinomial. Then we are left with m plus 10 squared is equal to 36. Take the square root on both sides, then solve two different equations, and you should have found that your solution for m in this case are the values negative 16 and negative 4. Now let's take a look at example 5 here. You should notice that you need to add 96 on both sides first. Then we need to find the value that will complete the square by using b over 2 squared. In this case, the value is 25, so we need to add it to both sides. Then we need to factor the perfect square trinomial, and we find that its factors are x minus 5 times x minus 5, which we can rewrite as x minus 5 squared. That is all equal to 121 after adding 96 and 25. After taking the square root, we are left with x minus 5 equals plus or minus 11. We split it into two separate equations, and we find that our values for x after completing the square are -6 and 16. Please go back to my page and continue on with the practice and the exit ticket. See you next time.